It is August 26th at 7:30 PM. This is the monthly Town of Mount Airy Planning Commission meeting, and we will open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Our first item on tonight's agenda, as always, is to take a look at the last meeting's minutes. And I will pause a moment before asking for a motion as to accepting those minutes. And once a motion is made for acceptance, then I will entertain any edits, if necessary, that anybody may see. With that pause, does anybody make a motion with regard to the minutes from the last July meeting?
I'll also move.
The motion to accept is made by Commissioner Butts. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Beta seconds. Is there any discussion or edits offered by any of the commissioners to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of accepting the minutes from the last commissioner meetings signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained by,
I was not here.
yes, Commissioner Bynec. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda, as always, is citizen comments. Those comments at this moment are hopefully focused on any items that are not included in tonight's agenda. So any comments in general. For each agenda item, we will open at the end of that agenda item's discussion by the commissioners, any public comment relatives to that agenda item. But for now, seeing none, I will close the public comments portion of tonight's agenda, and we will move now directly to a report from our Carroll County planner, Hannah Weber. Hannah, thank you.
Okay, updates from Carroll County Planning. We are currently processing the Mount Airy annexation of the Pink Land. This was introduced to our Planning Commission at their August 20th meeting. They forwarded a favorable recommendation of the zoning waiver to the county commissioners with the condition that the town undergo a water and sewer amendment to bring the property into priority water and sewer service category. And this will be heard by the Board of County Commissioners next Thursday, September 5th. And I believe I've talked to John about it, and he will be in attendance.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you have any questions about that, I'm the planner that's processing that, so any questions? We are currently undergoing 2 text amendments with the Planning Commission right now. One is for solar site design. The county is currently aware that there's been applicants to the Maryland Public Service Commission regarding some solar facilities on agriculturally zoned properties. The county commissioners voted, I believe it was 2 years ago, to not allow solar facilities on ag-zoned properties. So the Public Service Commission is able to override that outright ban of solar facilities on ag land, but we are going to move ahead and process this text amendment to get some design guidelines in our zoning code for these facilities. So it's just for things like setbacks, landscaping, fencing, and things like that. So that's currently with our Planning Commission, hoping to get that to the commissioners sometime in October. We also are doing the housing legislation regarding House Bill 538 that was passed this legislative session. This is regarding qualified projects and manufactured homes and modular homes. This will be introduced to the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 4th. And then lastly, we are scheduled to have 2 work sessions regarding our 2025 master plan. We will have a work session, the second work session with our county commissioners this Thursday, the 29th. And then we are set to have a joint work session with our county commissioners and our planning commission on September 17th. So if you're interested in watching, they'll be recorded and posted on our website. And that's it for me.
Commissioners, any question for Carroll County or Ms. Weber? I have a quick question, and that is, I believe we understood going back to the House bill with regard to the housing legislation. I think we had an understanding that the town, this municipality, should wait and see what the county develops with regard to that. When we study what you guys get passed, to take a look at whether or not we want to kind of follow suit or align with it in some regard within our own town code. Is that correct?
Yeah, the legislation takes effect January 1.
Right.
So whether you want to have something in place by then or not, it'll be effective. So there are some things that would affect the town. So any zoning district where you allow single-family dwellings, you'll have to allow modular dwellings and manufactured homes. So in the county, we don't allow manufactured homes anywhere, so that's a big change for us. And then also qualified projects, obviously. But the main one is going to be the manufactured home part of our zoning code.
Gotcha. So we'll stay tuned for what comes out of Carroll County
Yeah,
on that.
and feel free to, obviously I'll give my updates every month. I can keep you up to date with where we are. Like I said, it's getting introduced next Wednesday,
Awesome.
September 4th.
And just touching lightly on the solar text that you're crafting, so there was a moratorium placed by the commissioners
Correct.
on.
There was a moratorium which halted all development projects that were in the pipeline. The moratorium expired, and then the commissioners voted to prohibit solar fields in ag land.
Right.
So these property owners are able to apply to the state where they can override jurisdiction zoning.
Right.
So.
And do you happen to know, and again, I can look it up, but does the PSC hold a public hearing with regard to
Yes.
those applicants? Okay,
Yeah.
so then members of Carroll County can attend that public hearing with regard to those applications?
Yeah, I'm also processing this amendment, but so I'm kind of more aware. The farthest application we know of is set to have a public hearing in early October.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
if there's it's either 7 or 9 applications in total.
Hannah?
Yeah.
Quick question. Are there any other topics or issues that may likely come up, or are you personally or other planners in Carroll County would like to see come up, and there'd be some discussion on it?
Housing is a big issue everywhere. These solar facilities are a big issue. It's a good question.
If I can jump in, I think we're all poised to wait and see what comes out of the ADU
Yeah,
task
for sure.
force. So that's kind of a hang fire right now. That's kind of out there right now.
Yeah.
For us to all see what all jurisdictions are going to go with what the governor signs into legislation
Yeah,
on that.
legislative session's always interesting.
Right, gotcha. Any other questions? Hannah, once again, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Our next agenda item is to open up a discussion through the introduction of a proposed exterior modification to the main entrance drive-through, an additional pickup window, and an ADA compliant sidewalk access to the McDonald's located off of our Ridgeside Drive. And we do not have a representative of that application here tonight. In discussions with the Director of Planning, we have some options here. Normally, we entertain our questions about the design with that applicant in order to gain clarity and, any other aspects of it that you'd like to resolve before voting. There's always the option for us to table this item and move it to another month when we have some sense of that applicant being present. And so, John, what are your thoughts?
I was thinking we could at least postpone it currently, right?
Okay.
Not table it just yet. Let's postpone it to the end of the meeting. They might be running late. into a situation.
Okay.
Let's go through the other items, and then if we get to the end of the agenda,
Right.
then we'll table it.
That's fair. And
Instead of just tabling it right now.
I think that's a wise choice here because John has assured me that he has repeatedly notified them to be here tonight. And so unless there's opposition from any commissioner as to bumping it into the latter part of tonight, then let's just move right into the master plan review and we'll pick up the McDonald's issue afterwards. So while everybody gets settled with what we're going to discuss tonight, I'll give a quick roll-up, and that is we had the 60-day reviews by the county and the state, counties and the state. We then looked at their suggestions, and we made revisions throughout the entire draft that was given to them on 1 May of this year. And so now we're in the process of going through those revisions to make sure they are sufficient, they say the right things, just that simple. We are on a glide path to finish these and drive toward the next significant event in the master plan process, which is the public hearing, and that is set for September 12th at 6:30 to 8:30 here in the town hall chambers. And so our ambition is to get through what we believe are the correct revisions and edits and get that version into the hands of the public by September 5th, a week before September 12th, so they have time to read it, digest it, and form their own comments for the hearing on September 12th. So that's our glide path in kind of the near term. We did have a workshop to go through the introduction all the way up to Chapter 6 at the Senior Citizen Center on August 22nd. I felt like it was very productive. What I admire the other commissioners for is that we just didn't sit back and say, good, good, good. There was a really healthy discussion, and we actually came away with improvements on our revisions. And so everybody is still energized, everybody is still engaged, and so we will now continue past Chapter 6 tonight with Chapters 7, 8, and 9. 9, as you know, is a roll-up of all our goals and objectives. That was a really good recommendation from Commissioner Wallace to put at the end. And so really, I think the meat on tonight's bone is really just 7 and 8, if you follow what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So with that, I believe our rules of engagement are, we're not going to go page by page. We're going to go to wherever the red ink is, because I think all of us could probably darn near recite this thing. We've seen it so much. So if you don't mind, I'll interject, but I don't need to recognize anybody. It's going to be just open discussion here, just as we did at the Senior Citizen Center. John included, Deborah, Jason, everybody. The purpose is to make it as good as we can get in these chapters. So credit to Commissioner Butts, who also sits on Cole, the other commission, and he had the task to coordinate with his Cole commissioners to redo the text in this chapter, which is government facilities, to make the library and senior citizen center text as good as we can. And so I don't know, Bill, if you want to elaborate on anything. This is what you gave us from the Cole interaction. I've gone through it a few times. I think it reflects.
I think it speaks for itself. The attempt here was to take the feedback and the concerns that had been expressed and to retool it in such a way that it made sense and could be digested by anyone who wanted to take a look at it. And I think we improved the presentation of that. I think we shortened it, made it to the point.
Okay.
And, if all of you or most of you have looked through that, if you have any questions or concerns, please express them.
John, if you just want to scroll us on down to the next page. You can see the line out is what was there before, obviously. and now the new text above it. I did have a question, Bill, in all the discussions of the Mount Airy Senior Citizen Center, and I hate to sound like a stickler, but I want to make sure I get it accurate with Cold, and that is, it's the Mount Airy Senior and Community Center.
That's correct. That's the way Carroll County prefers
Right.
to refer to it.
So if I can advocate, we make that change on that heading there, Mount Airy Senior and Community Center, to capture it correctly.
Actually, I guess that wasn't, this is what was
Ah,
intended.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
It was in your submission, so my bad. Okay.
Along those lines, I think there was something weird with maybe with a copy paste. If you look at line 38, 31,
Yeah, it's a common error when you copy and paste.
yeah, 38,
It's an
35.
HTML thing. So it says "and," but it
Oh.
says "and"
Oh,
next
yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
yeah.
You just have to remove all that stuff. That was one of the
Yeah.
things I saw too.
Yeah.
Line 3831 and
You could just put "and"
3835.
there instead of the ampersand, is that what they call
Yeah,
that?
ampersand.
Yeah, it
Yep.
does that to apostrophes.
Yeah,
There's something, anyway, but good catch. I'll correct those. That's good. And scroll on down. Okay. And so the red ink there is really, as I had mentioned at the workshop, we modified Goal A based upon Carroll County's strong recommendation because we kind of, originally, that Goal A was to exceed adequacy or go beyond adequacy. And in the good interaction with, I think it was Ms. Weber, we then brought it back into a more realistic, perhaps, I guess is the right word, a more realistic goal to achieve. And so that's why you see, I had to ripple that through all the chapters wherever Goal A was part of an objective. So that's as simple as it is. And anything else read on there, John?
Oh, yeah, down at the. Oh, and
You have
the
the
and.
4001.
Yeah, 4001 again.
And 009, Steve? Okay.
Wow. It could be my
Do
version,
a-
my version of Word or something. I don't know. Good catch, though. I'll scrub
yep.
each of that. And so those, again, were the new implementing strategies, Bill, that came from
That's
you.
right.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, just to kind of recap, every objective has an objective leader because, downstream in 2025, we're going to set up these reviews of how well are we doing. And we're going to tag your it to all the objective leaders to get up and talk about what have you been doing. The implementing strategies, in my mind, Ralph Gent's mind, are really to kind of be the starting fluid of getting toward that objective, right? And they're just good ideas that say, these are things that you really ought to consider in implementing this objective. And so you can certainly, any objective lead can add to it, modify it, but they'll be, I guess the right word is accountable, right? So, anyway, any other red there on,
Did you have something?
Just on 4018, if we could take the word "and" off of that.
oh, just start with collectively.
Yeah.
Yep.
Collectively propose and agree on
Well,
singular.
we want to build a productive partnership that collectively proposes and agrees on a shared solution strategy. So I think it's fine as written. I think the challenge was that because it's a list. So if you want to have an "and," then I would, after the word counties on the second bullet, I would put a comma and then,
And then the third one.
yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
those little amps. Okay.
Any comments? I'll put a space in with that second strategy, just keeping the format consistent. I'll clean that up.
The other attempt here was with the second bullet under the implementation. In addition, coordinate with both Carroll and Frederick counties to better understand the complete array of available senior and community center services that are being offered in other communities. We want to diffuse the position, if possible, that may exist in the part of some of the proponents of leaving it the way it is. I mean, we want to take the large view, the in-depth view. What's best for the community? What's best for Mount Airy?
Ralph, I just have a general
Sure.
comment. So, and this is a style choice, but when we're writing objectives, typically an objective is an outcome or a result. These are written as an action, and I think the implementation should be the actions, and the objective should be the result we're trying to achieve. Again, it's a stylistic thing, but if down the road you choose to, measure success or not, right? You want to measure success of a result, you don't want to measure activity. So it's just a thought.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing, and I think the element that would come out of a revision of that objective would be getting the survey done, right? Because all the words say, get a survey, right? So, and then getting a survey, to your point, requires coordination and all those other words that are up there. So I'll talk. Do you understand her point? Yeah. So in other words, there's kind of an end state or, something that you can measure and put your hands around. The muscle movements are coordinating, et cetera, et cetera. So we can talk about refining that.
It's really a dual objective to better understand via surveys and talking with the audience what's in the best interest, what is requested in part by the general population of Mount Airy, and especially what is requested and what are priorities for the growing senior portion of it. We want to be sure that we don't short one to benefit, that it's balanced,
Yeah.
that we're looking at the big picture.
And I didn't look at the other chapters to see if they're written the same way. I just noticed that.
Yeah,
With the
yeah, that's a good point, Commissioner Wallace. Maybe we look at the objective as, because you want to offer, more services. So the objective is offer more inclusive services to the 60-plus population, and the objective is to run the survey. Or I'm sorry, not the objective, but the implementation is to run the survey.
Yeah.
So the objective would
Could
be
even go to that level.
to look at our services we want to offer the 60-plus community.
Yes.
And by surveying them as one of our implementation items, that's what we come up with it.
Yeah.
There's another perspective on this as well, and I guess maybe it was a bias on our part, but we've been thinking about an integrated facility that provides a library, that provides a senior and a community center services, and to integrate that. That potentially, if it can be done, would keep the total cost down. But the other thing that we realize, and the more we did our research, the more we came back to it, we have a lot of impact because we're at the heart of the 4-county area. We attract to that facility a lot more than just local residents. And they like to come, and they like to use it. But we have limited capabilities.
Yeah, so I like what both commissioners have said here, and I think improving the services to the center is kind of the objective, and then going about it, implementing it, get a survey, hold the survey, find out what are the available county-provided services, pull all that together to get toward the goal and the objective. So let me do a little revisioning, I'll shoot it to you.
All right.
But no, thanks, good comments.
Yeah. Very
Is
good.
is that the last one? So that's for chapter 7, gotcha.
The only thing I had comments on is, but the department, I was just looking at the Department of Aging for Maryland, and they do say 60 years or older. So typically, housing developments or senior living facilities are 55 or better, or 62 or better, but with, that I'm looking at this now, I'm okay with
Yeah,
60.
we had that discussion.
Okay.
And wound up deciding to go 60 plus.
And it does say in the Department of Aging as well, so.
Gotcha. Okay, John, can we move to, not McDonald's, but to chapter 8, design guidelines. And the reading there, if I'm not mistaken, is more toward the end, John? Yeah. So just bump up to where we can see the objective statement. And so the end state there is revised design guidelines, right? And so as part of getting a better set of design guidelines, we originally had references to consider in getting to that better product. And so all I did was add the complete streets concept into that array of considerations. That's all it is. And I'm not going to elaborate on complete streets unless somebody doesn't quite understand it, but we'll do our best to kind of put that into the design guidelines on how we can maybe improve our streetscape. Any comments on that? Nope, okay. Scrolling down, I think there was,
That was it.
that's it. Okay, that's it. So, and I like to say to all the commissions, when we do anything that looks like a roadshow on the master plan, that even the planning commission has taken on a role in the, how are we doing implementing the master plan? So, you know, we haven't shied away from taking on some work afterwards also, and the design guidelines are going to be our work in 2025. With that, I believe there was interest in public comment toward either these chapters or in general the master plan. Yep, please, yep. And I guess probably easier to sit. Sure. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Good evening. I know you guys have all been working really hard on this. I know what it's like to work on something of this magnitude, and you're dotting the i's and crossing the t's. I'd like to ask you to take a step back and go up to the 50,000-foot level and just consider my comment. And my comment is this. So I was out walking into my neighborhood probably about a month ago. And as I sometimes do, I actually volunteer that I'm a town council member. And a young lady was walking in the neighborhood. And I said, you know, how you doing? How are things going for you in the town? And have any issues? And she said, well, I just work here. I don't live here. She said, but I wish I lived here. She said, there aren't many places left like this. She said, I used to live in Florida. Now I'm here. But I really wish I could live here because not much like this around. And so I want to imprint that on you. And what I want to ask you to think about is when you deliver this master plan, okay? Are you safeguarding the values and the quality of life attributes that our citizens have asked for, have sacrificed for, have worked hard for as members of this community? Because they've been telling us this, right? We've had 2 town surveys, 2020, 2008, consistent questions on growth and development. They have told us, you know, strong sentiment against residential growth. We strongly do not want high-density growth. We want open space, we want trails, we want safe communities for our kids. Just reflect on what the citizens have told us they're looking for. And reflect on the public comments for Green Tree, reflect on the public comments for Mount Airy Crossing. They've told us what they want. Sometimes it's as easy as just listening to what the citizens have said. So I just want to imprint that on you and ask yourself, because, you know, and I know you know this, and I've harped on this, you know, this is a document that if the council uses it the way it's intended, this is going to shape land use planning and zoning for the next 10 years. That's 2 councils. You're going to have 2 more council elections with 2 cycles of council members. That's 10 years. And 10 years from now, some of you guys may be retired or even more retired than you are. Some of you guys' kids are going to be not in the 3rd grade, but they're going to be driving or in college. What are the roads going to be like when they're driving? So that's what I want you to think about. So when you deliver this plan to me as a council member, that's what I'm going to be looking for. Does this reflect what the values and quality of life vision that our citizens have told us they want? And are you safeguarding those things? And if I don't see it, I'm going to let you know. So thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, sure.
Is there anything specific in the plan as it stands today that causes you to have concerns about that?
Well, so that's a good question, and I haven't read every chapter. I've certainly worked on the transportation chapter as the liaison. I've skimmed around here and there, but excuse me. I mean, even looking at the 2013 master plan, there's a lot of emphasis on mixed use and infill development, not prioritizing annexations. Annexations should not be prioritized. We ought to focus on X, Y, Z. And I will tell you, I think as a council member, I have not approved any annexations. You know why? 1, they didn't look good on their face, but 2, I looked at the master plan and it said we shouldn't be annexing properties. So it's just a reminder that what you say in the plan, if we use it the proper way, people are going to follow that. So, and for example, just a personal view, if the politicians, elected officials before me, had actually listened to the citizens in the 2 surveys, we may not have even had mixed-use development. We may not have had mixed-use zoning. We certainly wouldn't have had it on the scale that's been presented to us in one of these most recent development plans. So I'm just saying, what you write makes a difference, and if it's used properly, 10 years from now, Mount Airy is going to look the way that you guys think it should look through this master plan. So no pressure, guys, but that's that's what it is. So thank you for listening.
Thanks.
No, thank you for the comments. And if I can just suffix off of it, everybody has, hopefully in front of you, the latest, you know, workflow schedule. And so our ambition really is to get this thing ready, hopefully this time next month at the September Planning Commission meeting. I hope that after the public hearing and after we entertain revisions from that public hearing, that we can be here at this same place in September and I will ask for a roll call amongst all commissioners as to yay or nay on sending it over to council so it may be introduced in their October council meeting. All the while, the design of this workflow was to not push the draft master plan too far at the end of the year into the hands of the council. And I was just trying to make sure that we could be as thorough as possible, but not find ourselves throwing it over the fence into the council's hands, say, in December. I mean, because we all know that realistically, it's not a terribly productive time for all the good reasons of the holidays. And so I'm hopeful that we can have the quality in it, we can have the rigor in it, so that we can say, we believe it's as good as we can get, Councilmember DeMotor, and in your hands in October. Tentatively, I've offered after it is introduced, assuming that it will be, again, we'll have one more discussion at the commission here, that the council, and if I can just speak to the council now, the council has a number of ways for them to wring it out with the commissioners, with survey results, with public comments recorded, et cetera. And I'd be absolutely open to any discussions as how to do that efficiently and thoroughly, whether that's, workshops after, October's introduction or whatever. I don't want to get ahead of Council President Washabaugh. I'm sure, he'll need to be involved in what will now take place so that we can explain this, talk to me about that chapter. Those kind of discussions, I think we're all realistic here. They're fair. And sure. So we're kind of talking about next steps here and the quality of it. So any insight as to what I just mentioned?
Yeah, just again, just thinking to myself, I mean, I do like the idea of, certainly at a council meeting, a document of this importance should have some conversation around it. So I support the idea of a workshop, or if it's just going to be an item on the council agenda, a good 45-minute, conversation about it. I like the workshop concept.
Gotcha.
The other thing that would be helpful to me, and it may be helpful to council members and the citizens, is, like on first blush, it would just be good to have a presentation that says, okay, here are the main themes of the 2013 plan. Here's the 2023 plan. Here are the main themes that have changed or that we're either building upon from the 2013 plan, or we've kind of modified our strategy and our direction. And here's why. And here's the things that are same, here's the things that are different. And in terms of our implementation, our objectives and our implementation strategies, same kind of thing. Tell me the story on how you're going to get there if this is the direction you're trying to go. And that high-level presentation for me would help me see, okay, because I know 2013, I use it a lot, and it said a lot of things that I think we may not be going to now. I don't know. I'm waiting to see the document. So that kind of high level, here's where we were, here's where we are now, here's what's changed and why. And here, we're not going to go through 50 implementation goals and strategies, but for the key things that have changed, here are the key objectives and strategies for how we think we can get there.
Sure.
And that tees up then questions about the document. So some thoughts.
Nope.
Sorry, can I ask a question? Are you also looking at the legislative changes that have come down in the last 10 years that would affect town, like we were just talking about HB 538, and Carroll's going to give us some guidelines on that. Are you looking for something?
I have not. I have followed them to some degree.
Okay.
Let me try and say this diplomatically, okay? There are many things that may be asked of us as a town there are many things that we may be directed to do, and we must comply with.
Right.
There's a difference between wholly embracing these things no matter what versus, okay, we don't think these are right for Mount Airy, but if we have to do them and they're the law, then we'll do them. But we will comply. We're not going to exceed. We're going to demonstrate compliance because it may be that we are mandated to do some things, but it may not be right for this town. It may be right for cities, urban areas, other towns. But if we're truly listening to our citizens, it may not be right for our town. So I understand the walk we have to do to comply with legislation.
Right.
But there's a difference between fully embracing it and loving it versus, all right, you know, this is the government, you made a decision, we're gonna do what we're directed to do, but we will comply. It's the best way I can say it.
Sounds fair. You bet. So that wraps up this agenda item.
Do we have a chapter 9?
We do have a chapter 9, but it's a roll-up of all the goals and
That was what I wanted
objectives.
to work on the roll-up, but we don't have to do that today.
Gotcha.
Just saying that we.
Hey,
I mean, we've got time.
you could, sure, go ahead. We'll go to that.
You haven't heard from McDonald's at all? Has anybody tried to contact you?
Yeah, we call.
You go down there.
Yeah.
Steve was just there. Steve, why didn't you remind him there's a meeting about them?
I thought so too, but it doesn't harm. We got 5-10 minutes. We can take a quick look. Yep.
Yeah.
And so, you know, nine is kind of what I understand to be the chapter that will guide the periodic reviews, okay? Because we'll pull chapter 9 out. It's a roll-up of what all the goals and all the objectives and all the implementing strategies are in one tranche, okay? So in my view, chapter 9 is what we use when we sit down and go, how's it going, okay? Just as simply put as that.
This might be a good precursor for Councilman DeMotor to kind of look at, you know, these strategies we're coming up with.
Yep.
And how they'll align with the town and its citizens' comments and every those things, right?
Yep. Gotcha.
It's on the town website. That's where I got it.
And the yellow highlight will stay in all the way through to the delivery to the council, because the yellow highlight, as we discussed early on, was in this particular introduction section, was to show them what the 2013 vision statement was, and then what we're offering as the revised 2023 vision statement is. So they just simply have both of them there on one piece of paper. One of them will get scrubbed, but it's just kind of all together there in one area. And then again, we already talked about changing goal A. I elaborated on that earlier. So that had to change. And then we go on down to the remaining goals. Goal A again had to be rewritten. That's why you're seeing it there. And then underneath it, we have where goal A is being performed through, you know, all of that. So let's just stop for a moment. And so everybody understands the code that we adopt. Just go to any objective. Just go to any objective. There, just stay right there. So you see two objectives there. I can see I need to underline one of them. So objective A63, what the heck is that code? Remember, it's goal A. It's found in chapter 6. And it's the third objective in chapter 6. That's as simple as it is. And so it's kind of an indexing and like, where do I see the basis for creating this? Well, you'd have to go to chapter 6. That's why it's tagged in that fashion. And so as you go through, keep scrolling, you'll see other other objective codes to go through B, C, D, E, E, whatever 6 is, and so on and so forth, so.
There's another ampersand issue
There
on
is
those two.
40,
Oh,
4297.
4297.
More amps.
I'm amazed. I got it. 4290, 4297.
We were consistent with this.
How about that?
At least we're catching them.
You know what happened is that,
I had this on my edits thing. That's
Oh,
why I
did you?
was-
yeah, at some point, if you've ever done the review and show markups when you do accept all, then things like that will show up with a blue underline because it's a misspelling or it's, poor grammar. So I'm sure I'll catch everything in there once we do all the changes being accepted.
4268, there's an and sign too. Is this something that we already went through?
Oh, so that'll ripple.
Okay,
so,
ripple
yeah,
too. Okay,
Yeah, so
perfect.
the correction we talked about, we'll go over into that. And again, on that particular objective, I think we're gonna do a sidebar here to kind of get it kind of task-focused and in-state focused. So that may get rewritten altogether.
Oh, and we just went over, right?
Yeah, it's the services for the community that we were referencing in chapter 7.
Yeah.
It's just repeated here.
So you can see, I mean, A79 means there are 9 objectives, just right there. There's 9 objectives in the government facilities chapter. So a lot of work gonna hopefully get done across all those topics in chapter 7. So this is a new chapter 5 objective, and this is, as we discussed on August 22nd, you guys heard me at that workshop this past week where we're gonna leverage the recently approved, council-approved Urban Renewal Authority because it fits nicely into the segment of municipal growth, which is chapter 5, as to urging a redevelopment effort. And that's redevelopment is, a list of properties that we have come up with. Examples, well, a list of properties, and in now doing something about them, it's perfect that we've got an urban renewal authority to come up with criteria for what is blighted, et cetera, et cetera. So, flexing that new authority muscle in getting some of those properties kind of productive, improved, et cetera. And again, I was talking with the co-chair here, Martina, about that task. If you go back to it, just one more set of words here. Look who we put as the objective lead. So here we are, the Planning Commission volunteers, and we're going to tag your it to the council. Right? But they have the authority. We don't have the authority. Cole doesn't have the authority. The Water and Sewer Commission doesn't have the authority. So I tried to be careful. And so Councilmember DeMotor, here's a good area where I'm sure there's going to be a discussion on that particular objective. Is it a good objective? Number 1 question. Number 2, is it appropriate to hand it over to the council? Or, as I worded there, or designated committee, to act with that authority. It's that sort of wording that we're just trying to flex that muscle that you now have. So,
Any thoughts, Jason?
yeah. I'm sure we're gonna talk about that. Yeah. So, I'm totally interested. you know, if you guys look across the dais at me and Martina in the crowd and go, don't ever task the council. No, I'm just joking.
Urban Renewal Authority Charter Amendment that got passed has language in it that says one of the actions the town can take is to establish a committee to do this.
Right, yeah,
If anyone's interested, I want thoughts on urban renewal. Look at the council meeting that I voted.
outstanding.
Look at the range of my comments that caution council. One was, where are the criteria for determining?
Yeah.
So that's, I like what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. It's difficult to go to a property owner that has a shuttered business and say, you're now being looked at. And it would be legitimate for that property owner to say, by what criteria did I now suddenly become of interest for urban renewal? I mean, so, yeah, we gotta plow that ground together or however, so.
Just to, and this gets back to the earlier comment about how we're writing objectives. Can you scroll back to the urban renewal one? So I think because that charter amendment is relatively new and, you know, I mean, you know how people feel about these types of things and, you know, like eminent domain has been discussed, you know, and other issues in the county and things like that. So I think if we could state in the objective, like what we're actually trying to accomplish here, instead of just say, we're gonna redevelop, you know, properties or whatever, like, I think it would be better if we say what we're trying to achieve by exercising that authority. And then, you know, you can have your implementation activities underneath, but it might be better to be clear on the why for that.
Can you send me some perspective, new objective wording? That
If I knew what urban renewal, if I don't know the purpose of it, I can speculate. Maybe it's in the charter amendment. Is there verbiage in the charter amendment?
I think so. It's 2024-02,
Okay.
I think it is.
The town already has many of the similar authorities in other chapters regarding maintenance of property, maintenance of structures, so.
Okay.
Yeah, like what are we trying to do? I guess that's, no, go ahead.
It gives the impression.
Yeah. Because the piece that I cut out of the paper, and I'm carrying around with me because it said it talked about, you know, remediating a specific property that's become dilapidated and even hazardous as opposed to eminent domain, that kind of thing. But it might be about remediation.
That's wording that we could work with to make
What do you
an
think?
objective.
I think Commissioner Wallace brings up a lot of good points. I think the perception, you need to think about the perception, because when people read this,
Right.
there's the well-intended objectives of this and how it could be used in a very mischievous way. And so it can be, what I read out of it was, it's an opportunity to, if a property owner, after many, many interactions with the town, is not moving ahead to maintain and improve their property, the town can take various steps, and the intent is for that property to then be re-privatized and developed by somebody else. I know the town perhaps has some interest in acquiring certain properties for its own intentions. And that may be a very noble thing as well, but we need to be careful that a government isn't targeting landowners and their properties in an unfair manner just to get some property cheaply so that the town can achieve some of their, I'll call them pet projects even. So it just be careful with, I like the intent. Go back and look at the Urban Renewal Authority. And again, if you want to get the flavor of comments, go back and look at that council meeting for my balancing concerns on that. I did vote for it, but it was a very tentative yes vote. So, thank you.
Yeah, and no, I'm totally tuned into the bad messaging that could occur, the bad messaging that could occur. And so when I wrote that short, concise, objective statement, I was really trying to be sensitive to that. But again, you know, when we get to the council interaction, I'm all ears on how to better describe that effort. And we'll make the right changes. So, and it'll also be interesting to see if anyone in the public hearing keys in on that, because they see it, you know, offensive, or they see it as overreaching, whatever. But, you know, that'll be an area that I'll be kind of listening for if anyone, you know, sees it and is worrisome for them. So you had a comment?
Well, I guess my question is, I'm happy to go back and review the charter and propose new objective language for this. You know, if based on what Martina said, I think we can do that. The question is timing, because this has to be out by the 5th, I believe,
Right.
For public consumption. And I kind of brought it up because it does, you know, it does
Hit
strike
you that way?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
and so I guess my question is, are we gonna just put it out as is, or are we interested in making a change?
Oh, no,
Okay.
we're totally interested.
Okay.
There, you know, there's already work on the table right now that John and I haven't finished. We've got, I won't go down the long list, but no, it's absolutely fair game to throw new edits into the process. September 5th is kind of around the corner. But, you know, our endeavor is, I think I used the term, but get it as good as we can get it. And then after the public hearing, you know, I have a session set up on, I believe it's September 17th. Is that right? Yes, September 17th. So 5 days after the public hearing, I felt like it was fair to give that time for everybody to kind of look at their notes, digest what was said, that sort of thing. And then I'm kind of glad you just brought that up, because I think we needed to decide on whether that September 17th post-hearing get-together of the commissioners, would it be more amenable for us to do that via Zoom or a physical work session? Is Zoom okay to hold it that way?
Zoom is better, but I mean, the month of September is just really,
know.
really bad.
Right.
So, so I'm gonna be scarce anyway. I can try to make a Zoom, so I don't, you know, I'll leave it up to the other commissioners. but-
Zoom might be, I mean, is it easier for everyone else, especially with the busy, crazy September madness?
Yeah, John, are you okay with us doing that post-public hearing scrub?
Yep.
And kind of what does everybody think? What did everybody hear? Are there things we need to now address because of, you know, Jane Doe, John Doe saying things?
Well, if the rewording doesn't happen before the 5th, then that would be when we could present it. As long as everybody agrees to it and the final document going to town council
Yeah.
has those changes, then we're okay.
Yeah,
So we're gonna have edits anyway from town council.
Well, and from the
Right.
public hearing possibly.
from the public hearing, yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, so to kind of wrap all that up, I'm totally open to anybody shooting me any suggested edits between now and September 5th. But in fairness to the public, I want to hang it at least a week out before the gathering here on September 12th. So, yeah, I'm dedicated to getting this as good as we can. And if you have comments or rewriting from tonight's discussion, or even thoughts afterwards, shoot them at me, and we'll get them into the draft that will hang out there on September 5th. And then afterwards, we're still in edit mode based upon what the public says. And then as you look on your calendar, I'm looking for the final draft to be September 23rd, so that gives everybody here a week to digest it before we sit down on September 30th and say, is it ready for prime time to toss over the fence and now engage the council? So I'll be glad when September's over. It is a busy time with all the things going on, family life included. So anyway, I won't elaborate. You've got the schedule in front of you, but yes, send me whatever you think would be improvements. You want to go on through the rest there, and so we're into goal B, goal C. Now, I'm glad, can you go back up to goal C? So goal C, you can take a look at it, residential development and housing diversity. Do you all see anything underneath that? No. There is no objective tagged to goal Charlie, okay? Now, I'm speaking for myself here, but I'm interested in your comments. So in all 8 chapters and introduction, there is not an implementing strategy and objective to go toward that goal. So I'm all ears on hearing, is that goal flawed? In other words, we can't find that goal, gathering an effort within, the 8 chapters and intro. So,
Is,
yeah, take a look at that.
is that more tied to the HB 538?
It is, I can see that connection. I've looked at this because we talk about housing and zoning in chapter 4. So, maybe chapter 4 should have an objective that pulls on accomplishing goal Charlie. And a kind of a high level question is, if we don't have objectives under a goal, is that a bad goal? In other, you see what I'm saying? We can have a goal, but for all the other goals, we have kind of a way ahead on attaining it. We don't have a way ahead set of objectives for goal Charlie.
Could an objective be, we're waiting for guidance from the state? Legislations take effect, or is that not worth mentioning? Because I know a lot of changes coming after we plan to have this done.
Yeah, I mean, HB 538, effective in 1 January,
Yeah.
is going to talk about what we have to allow now with regard to housing diversity and housing affordability, the manufactured homes,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. And there were those other elements of HB 538. What was it, the credits?
Well, they were saying increase.
The density credits.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, the density credits that you can go beyond your current zoning density maximums. That's not a bad place to put it. Chapter 4, talk about HB 538.
I'm sorry, we also have that graphic of that middle housing,
Yeah.
missing middle housing throughout that chapter, and perhaps we just retool this
Plus-
goal.
Plus what you just sent us with those brochures, that
Yeah.
Right.
they really describe what they're talking about,
Yeah.
the missing middle housing.
Missing middle housing. And the entry-level homes that were with the builder grade material, so that it's not so expensive. In order for the young working families to be able to purchase.
Right, it's a good point, because when you look at that wording, that is exactly what missing middle is, affordable entry-level housing.
So, just a question. Given the available infill properties in town, is this achievable?
I hate to give you that answer, but it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on, I guess it depends on what tracks you're talking about that don't have anything built on them, that are still residential zoned, including mixed use.
Right, there aren't that many,
So we do have downtown zone cold storage, but, that's, I don't know when we'd ever consider it as a viable, residential project. We have, the two big ones, of course, are the MXD and MXUCC, right? We're talking Beck 90 acres and Green Tree, which is already underway. If we're talking about any sizable density of residential construction, those two come to mind immediately. John, I mean, did you?
Anything above 50 houses, no. I mean, they're really the only 2 properties that
That's
I
it.
can really foresee.
Well, maybe like to split the difference, because, I just brought up the brochure and they talk about, multifamily, 4 to 8 units, smaller scale homes, and then ADUs, common courtyard, all these things. Maybe we just make a note of it because we're acknowledging it, but like Councilman Noder said, sometimes things aren't possible here. even though we are kind of, we're acknowledging that this legislation has happened, but we just don't know what the future holds for that.
I guess first, going back to the comments made by a council member, where did the goal come from? Does it align with what the town wants to have? And what is mandated by the state versus what do we have, what do we want to do versus what do we need to do to comply?
Right.
I think that might need another look. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of the things in that goal, but we should have achievable goals and we should have achievable goals that align with what the desires are of the existing residents of the town.
And my point is to just add on, and we should have some sense of more tactical objectives to get to that goal. Yeah. And we don't have those objectives, and I think what I've heard is we can create an objective that speaks to the missing middle housing concept within Chapter 4. And so what I'm kind of thinking in my head right now is there will be a draft, Charlie 4.1 created that's gonna leverage the missing middle housing, and with kind of a place and to be determined HB 538,
Yeah.
compliance.
Because they do mention.
Does that work for?
So my only concern is that we don't know what the county is gonna do.
Right.
With the HB 536. 8, sorry. And putting it in there, not knowing what's gonna come down the line. I'm just very cautious about that.
Would you be comfortable with us just saying?
We will acknowledge whatever the
Right,
county
right,
or
that's-
state
yeah,
governs,
yeah.
and just leave it at that. A very blank,
Because
non-descriptive line in there, because we don't want to be held our feet to the fire, per se, with this, not knowing what's coming down the line.
Because they also talk about ADUs, and we know something's coming on that. They're literally putting ADUs in the definition of missing middle, and that's coming as well.
Right. But
Um,
again, like,
We
don't,
can't- Yeah,
yeah. And until we know,
what it is, right?
we can't foresee, we can't look at our crystal ball and figure it out. We need to wait to see how it comes down the line to us.
Right, wait
So
for
if we just do a very blank,
Neutral.
neutral statement, and that's it, saying that we will follow HB 538 per state and county,
Using the county.
Guide.
yeah,
Yeah.
state and county government, done. That takes kind of our hands off of it. Also, I have one edit for grammar or spell check. For 4300, aging is AGING.
Right,
No E. I'm gonna give you back a vowel.
I saw that, yeah.
I saw that before
I
too,
just-
but then I looked in my phone and it said it was right. And I'm like, okay, which one? I don't
I
believe
just-
that.
I just wanted to say on goal C, how come only senior housing gets to be exemplary and have amenities?
Come what?
I'll take exemplary out.
Exemplary senior.
Oh, yeah.
Amenities, but nobody else does.
Because they're special.
Affordable entry-level housing and exemplary
I'll
senior.
take out exemplary, yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha, okay.
I guess a couple things too, on the middle housing or whatever, missing middle housing.
Right.
Acknowledging just for anybody who's listening, that was put out by realtors, not necessarily like the state. Is that fair to say? It's a realtor association.
She's reflecting on the MML symposium where missing middle would discuss. It's actually I can't say it's formally what's your feeling on missing middle being either an MDP term or?
I think they're tagging it. I think it's potentially, the realtors also pushing it, but it was also something that Justin brought in front of us as well.
Right.
As something that Frederick County, but again,
Yeah.
That sheet is from the Realtor Association.
It is.
But it's
Right.
actually a national trend. It's not just the realtors.
Yeah.
And Frederick County was pretty good about
Yeah.
defining it.
Yeah, and
It's really for like workforce housing, young adults. It's, the whole point is to get a mixed use, and that's,
Yeah, and I understand that. I think the issue is that whether you're building mixed use, building single family, building townhomes, it's market rate,
Yeah.
right? And so Mount Airy is not going to solve Maryland's housing crisis, a middle housing crisis. And I think that we just need to be mindful of that. Like, we don't get to decide, you know,
Right, like Councilman Doder said, you know,
Right.
not everything could be a fit for Mount Airy, but at least we're just acknowledging neutrally that these, you know, this is legislation. And then go from there, because we can't, I mean, we just don't know what's gonna be, it has to be brought to us, right, John? Like, we
Right, well, and
can't-
currently, there's no quantifying number they're saying that we have to provide within every development. So, you know, I think as a planning commission, when an applicant comes in with a plan, that's when we need to ask them to try to build, like I said before, at the work session, is try to, you know, you can build, the outside can look exactly the same, but the inside doesn't have to have quartz countertops. It doesn't have to have this. It has, it can have the contractor toilet cabinet or whatever. So I think we just have to, you know, see if we can get them to put in 5% or 3% of the houses to be this entry-level home for individuals who are looking to move into the area, that want to live in the area, but they can't afford to live here. But again, I think as Heather was saying, that, you know, it's market rate. And if the market will bear it, that's what they're going to sell them at. You know, it's just, that's business.
I'll survey MDP and I'll ask if this missing middle concept is in fact adopted by them and advocated by them. I'll get a concrete answer to you on that question.
okay.
Because it is fair to say it's a Realtor brochure right now, so.
And also, I mean, I know that with the, I think it was chapter 5 or I can't remember which one, we had to do an analysis of the population and the, you know, income, average income and things like that. So I guess my question would be, what does middle housing look like? What does that look like in Mount Airy based on that statistic, right? I mean, I think that that's
Right, what the
probably
ratio
a,
would be, you're saying.
right, I mean,
Right.
That would be
60% of 143,000
Right.
is our number,
Exactly.
right?
right.
Can you
So-
get housing in that realm?
Right, I mean, so for us, like, you
less
know,
and less every day.
a $350,000 townhouse might be acceptable for middle income, or whatever, it's
Just the
called
middle.
middle housing, I can't get that.
I think for
acronym
the middle housing, it's also, it's not just single families and townhouses, or it's not just, it's a mix of different stuff together. So it's not necessarily like what the medium or the average for salary would be. It would be like,
And
just trying to diversify, and like something like the downtown zone or something like that, if it gets redeveloped.
And when we went to
Would be easy to do.
Annapolis, they talked about triplexes, duplex, like this is also coming from this, the Maryland's own Department of Planning.
Yeah.
They had presentation after presentation from different places and talking, I remember when they were showing us the triplexes and
Yeah.
quadplexes. and,
Cottages,
You know,
stuff like
that was coming from Maryland as well.
You look at Montgomery County, they have MPDUs, moderately priced dwelling units in Montgomery County. And it's from homes, single-family homes, townhouses, condos, apartments, et cetera.
Are they doing any of the triplexes or quadplexes that you've seen, or?
My company is just
They have some quads.
getting with.
They do?
Yeah.
They are, oh, so you're just at the beginning of it. Well, that's not helpful. Yeah,
I don't know yet, we haven't set them yet.
oh, okay.
What, in the mechanisms of getting this change into here, if I were to make a stab at adding in all this good discussion, a new objective for Charlie, send it to John and Deborah, and John and Deborah hang it on the town website for you to pull down. I'm just thinking of the mechanisms, or would you prefer to look at it before we hang any revision on the website? Okay?
You probably should have it in front of the commission prior to hanging it.
Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure we don't violate the sunshine law, if you understand what I'm saying. Because if I contact all of them with, look at the attachment with the revisions we discussed, I have a quorum now. Do you understand? And I don't want to create a problem. I mean, the other thing we can do, and I hate to throw this on you and your staff, but make hard copy, drop it off at their homes for them to review, or,
Of that one section, I mean, that's not that big a deal. I can send an email to everybody,
okay,
and you can just respond back to me independently.
Okay.
And even CC, I guess you couldn't CC Ralph, I don't know. I think as long as it's just a planning commission member and yourself and me, then it's okay.
okay.
But we can't do everybody.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll cut these refinements and then I'll send it to you.
And then I can blast it out to
Then
everybody.
you go from there on making sure they can get eyes on it.
And then have everybody CC any comments back to me and you.
There you go. That'll work. Okay. Again, a process question, but I don't want to create a legal or
No,
problem.
no, you're fine.
Okay, so C, we've talked about. D, scroll on. And by the way, these page breaks, they'll all get fixed once we get everything, because you understand, I'll make it prettier so there's not those kind of page breaks. D and E are in the same category as Charlie, by the way. So let's have a quick discussion. Scroll. So D is commercial development. Commercial economic development. Now, since, do we want to bring up the EDC on this?
You can.
Yeah. So we were hopeful for maybe something from the Economic Development Commission to kind of help us in that.
Right, we forwarded,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and told them we'll keep working, so, I mean. Yeah, Ashley spoke to, I think, Martina.
She replied to the email, but I haven't seen anything further I mean, she's probably really busy, but I can ping her again and see. I'm sure she's really busy. She's got a lot to do.
So without having a similar discussion we had on Charlie, so I'll be looking for the EDC to help us on this, and/or Ashley's input, and we'll go from there. And then Echo is industrial development. So you all can see the trend here when we did the goals. We talk, residential, we talk commercial, we talk now industrial. I think there is a little bit of text within Chapter 5 on municipal growth with regard to our industrial ambitions. So I'll similarly look at a supporting objective in Chapter 5 for that.
Ralph,
Yep.
don't hate me, but going back to goal D, again, this is talking about where we want to focus development. It's not saying what our objective is for commercial development.
Well, a real,
Like, it's saying, we're going to focus commercial economic development along Center Street. It doesn't talk about Main Street, other than South Main.
I don't disagree with you, and that's why we were
Yeah.
trying to see if the EDC could say,
We're looking for EDC to give us input.
there's a more exact commercial development focus, yeah. Because that's very broad.
Not just location. Like, that's about, we're going to focus development in a location. What is our ultimate goal for commercial development in the town, I think is what I'm asking.
make it more
I think
broad.
that should be the stated objective, right?
It should address location, or it shouldn't,
I mean, you can say as an implementing
right?
step is where you want to do it, but what are you trying to achieve? That's all. So, I mean, that's what EDC should be asked. What are you trying, what's the
Right.
goal?
And then industrial development, we can put something in Chapter 5 under municipal growth that addresses that. And then F. And F is really A, B, C, D, E, F. F is the last one. F was written, and I'm kind of reprising, you know, the discussions we had early on in crafting these. F was put in there because of the public sentiment toward mixed use. And sentiment is meant to say opposition, concern, all the above, you know, about MXD. And so what I believe I'm speaking for all of us to say, we settled on F to assure the public that in the next 10 years, anything mixed-use development in this town, MXD, MXUCC, is going to be done maximum transparency, full public engagement. That's what F is trying to do. It's trying to allay any concern from a resident that it's business as usual with MXD. No, it's going to be highlighted, it's going to be focused, and we're going to make an extra effort when anything is developed in that zoning district. That's all F is trying to do. If that's unnecessary, I'm all ears. But that's kind of the rationale, 2-minute elevator speech.
It makes sense for this next cycle, two-year cycle.
And so after that, John, I don't think, is that it?
That's
I
it.
think that's it.
The only comment
We
I
have a comment from the audience.
Hannah? Okay.
Make sure that's on. Is that on?
There we go. Regarding the commercial and industrial development, Carroll County did an economic development study. Might be useful to take some notes from there because there are implementation strategies. And then just going back to the housing really quick, in having implementation strategies, part of the state requirement in the housing element specifically for furthering fair housing is, I believe you touched on it already, you have to assess what the median income is and stuff like that, but you also have to provide strategies in addressing it. So that would further support Martina's idea of
An
adding
objective.
something in there.
Yeah, the assessment action,
Correct, yeah.
those sorts of things. That's fair. And that's under Charlie, right?
That's it.
Good,
Yeah,
beautiful.
I had something wrong.
Yeah, Steve?
The, on the mixed-use development, I understand what we're addressing, and we want to say that. But my only issue is, we're stating it for mixed use, but we're not doing it for commercial, we're not doing it for industrial, we're
Right.
not doing it for residential.
Right.
So be more general?
And
We should be that transparent with all. So we either take it out and change it, or it should for any developmental projects, it should be there.
yeah, it clearly, and as I was trying to say, you know, I'm trying to address the public's concern on this whole MXD thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I will admit, full disclosure, that it does single out that particular zoning district. If you feel like that is putting all the other zoning districts in some kind lesser light, or that we won't have the rigor with all the other districts, then I can understand, you know, that
That's just my
sentiment.
only concern with them.
You know, how does everybody else feel? Is it an unnecessary goal?
We could acknowledge that, you know, there were some transparency issues, or maybe not acknowledge, but we could say that moving forward, we want to make sure that all of the projects will be held to the utmost scrutiny, if,
Yeah.
I mean,
I-
just to be general.
No, I totally understand Steve's comments, and so one part of me says, let's just broaden it to where there's that same sort of wording for all developments in all districts, right? That's kind of one
Either
thing.
that or remove that
Yeah,
from this one,
that's
is
kind of
what
my
he's sort of
point.
saying.
It's either for all or none.
Right,
So-
because
Be consistent, yeah.
I feel like we are transparent in a lot of times.
Yeah.
Almost everything. I mean, we send out notifications, we advertise. I'm not sure, except for running something on the website that we're having a meeting and come to our meeting tonight.
I have a comment about that too.
Okay.
We should just take it out? Oh,
It is your decision to make that.
Yeah, I mean, the other driver on this, kind of, getting my old memory cells, and it kind of was a conversation we had just a moment ago. The only real tracks for residential development that of any density are going to be the ones that are MXD and MXUCC. I mean, until we go into annexations, right? I mean, there's not much of a palette out there to paint new residential growth into, aside from Green Tree and the Beck
We
property.
should say that up there then.
Well, that's
Or,
an
or rezoning.
excellent point, Kim. Rezoning. Maybe this should be about following the master plan. In other words, if it's not in here to rezone, maybe we shouldn't rezone until the next master plan to make sure that all rezonings are part of the master plan. I'm just throwing it out.
Oh, Hannah. Sometimes property.
I think legally that's what you're supposed to do, but I don't know.
That brings up my point of, because you all have that table of properties that you're recommending to be rezoned. That's the purpose of also changing the land use designation to go with it. So anytime a property is rezoned, you can go back and say, our master plan supports this rezoning. It's consistent with the master plan. So, yes. Strongly encouraged.
So,
So the goal would be to
We don't, that was,
remove it.
Not part of
you
it.
can remove F, but I think I was bringing that up kind of in jest to point to the fact that we need to go back to chapters 4 or 5, whatever, and really make sure that we are clear on what we're stating those land uses to be in the master plan, because otherwise they will be whatever is in there, they could become. So,
To that point, we could bring up chapter 5, because again, I did make a change to the table. But when I brought it in here, it's in a different orientation, so it sort of chopped off some, but there's land uses there existing in the county, it's R40,000. Well, what is the designated use that we want to be into this parcel, be it the Mill Farm? Now, I will say that the Beck property, its future land use, I think, was MXD in the master plan. But anyway, I think that's why you have to be really delicate and gentle on how you're labeling items to be rezoned.
because there's a lot of OPE designations in that list, we don't know if that's still valid. You could
It's a
say,
valid, it's a
well, I
valid
know the
zone in
code
our
is valid,
code,
but
it
is
might
that what
not
you
be the
still want
right
to do?
use for that land.
Exactly. And then you have, there's discussion on here about South Main, and if we're talking about like all the way at the end of South Main, I mean, there could be some crazy thought to, hey, that's where we want to put missing middle housing or whatever. Maybe we want to throw something down at that end of the town. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there that I don't think we've actually had that conversation, and I thought we weren't having the conversation about the zones for specific properties because it had already, like landowners had already come in and requested and been approved for those.
They weren't approved, there was a portion where, when the master plan gets adopted, then we'll be going through all those rezoning requests for those parcels.
So in the rezoning section, we have chapter 5. Do we also designate the preferred land use for those
In
rezonings?
that chart. we
It's in
do
that
say
chart.
For those rezoning requests.
That's what I believe.
No, that's for
That's the
annexation-
tables you're
that's for
rebuilding?
annexations.
That's for annexations.
We have to look at maybe 4 is the one. for
Right,
the-
so
but I
so
don't-
I'm,
We did go in there, each of those parcels I numbered.
right,
Is what the current zoning is and what the
Right.
planning commission said that the planning commission that was here before when we went through all this, what they thought was the correct
Yes.
zone for that parcel or parcels.
yeah, so that whole section of rezoning, we go by different, like over there near I-70, we have those, I think it's 19 properties,
Correct.
right, that we're advocating rezoning.
Right, and we had CC on the east side of South Main and on the west side was LC.
Elsie.
Because it backs up to OPE ultimately if that
In
annexation.
a buffer
So
rationale.
housing couldn't go there
Right.
under that zoning because it's commercial.
Not under OPE unless that gets changed by the town council.
Okay.
Because there was a request from the landowner that missed the window, but
Okay.
the landowner being Carroll County.
So notwithstanding our earlier discussion as to the goodness of F, in retrospect, I'm hearing that it could possibly elicit question as to the transparency of the other zoning efforts, developments in the other zoning efforts. So I'm kind of hearing, let's take it out. Is that kind of the sentiment here?
I would say all or nothing, either leave it in, but include all the zones to Steve's point, or just,
Okay,
It's inviting more
okay.
like questions than it's solving.
And-
Is that fair to say that?
Yeah.
you know,
And as to the land use designations accompanying all of our recommended rezonings, let's just look at that. I'm not saying solve it here tonight, but I'm saying, I think is urging that we need to have that clarity also.
I would also allow us time to change the map that goes along with the designated land use.
Sure.
Because going in parcel by parcel could take a little bit of time.
Okay.
And that's why I wasn't sure either, because I could not find the designated land use, right? But this we'll bring up the map right now while we're here.
Have you got five, the maps for five? There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me get this thing. Again, these aren't putting zones, we're putting land uses, right? So, again, so the OPE here and there, this industrial and OPE, very tough to see the difference in colors on this one. We only have two OPE parcels, which is Harrison Shear and South Main annexation. This, of course, is the MXD. This is industrial and industrial over here. So I guess the big question is, do you want to look at the rezoning request, or what's your question?
But no, the thoroughness that's being advocated here is that in all of our sections that advocate rezoning, plats being rezoned, that rezoning has to also address whether it is, the new zoning is going to be compliant with the current land use, or if the new zoning being recommended is going to require a change in land use.
Okay.
Because what Hannah's saying here is if it's going to require a change in land use, that has to be tipped to the county so they can change the maps.
But so far, everything is consistent? Is that what we have so far?
If you're saying the parcels that you would like to be rezoned, like
Right.
you would support,
Right?
Okay.
those would be parcels that we would have to change on this map. That I'm recommending would be changed on this map.
So I'm a little concerned about this, and this is where I have a problem. So we haven't decided if the council is gonna approve those rezoning requests. So why would we change a map to support a not ratified?
Yeah, we wouldn't do it now.
Right, I mean, those will be, it's not part of this master plan, but I'm saying, yes, this maps will have to change if the rezoning happens. But I don't think we have the designated comprehensive land use is what it is currently, what's being activated right now. It's just like Dobbs property, it says conservation. So if this were to be annexed into the town, then it would come in as conservation.
Right, right.
Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure.
You just want your designated land use to be consistent with your zoning.
Correct.
So if the town council's adoption of the plan is their adoption of rezoning of the properties, then you would want the properties that are being rezoned by this plan to have a consistent designated land use.
Correct, correct.
Okay, so let's just take the South Main, because that's what Heather pulled up. Currently, it's residential or low-density residential, right? What is it? Currently, that's low-density residential. So you're saying that this should be in a commercial zone under this designation?
If that's what the planning commission recommended.
That's what they recommend.
Whatever the rezoning recommends.
Correct, yeah.
I think we need to look at this map and all the rezoning requests, if
Right.
that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was one of your comments, because I
Yeah.
didn't quite understand that comment.
And so kind of what I'm thinking is maybe the easy way, and check me if I've got this wrong, is that in all of our recommended rezonings, it would be helpful if we also say, and it continues to comply with current land use.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and you just like, if a property's gonna be rezoned, you want it to be backed up by your plan.
Right. Right.
I mean, the plan's open right now and being revised, so.
Now, devil's advocate, if any of the recommended rezoning doesn't comply, and I don't have that fear, but if it doesn't comply with the land use, then it's, in your mind from county, an invalid rezoning recommendation?
It would
Or
be inconsistent.
it would be inconsistent with current, but would the county accommodate changing the land use in order to accommodate the recommended rezoning? Or is that a third rail?
That's usually what you do during your master plan process, is you update your land uses to be consistent with your zonings.
That's what so it is possible.
Yeah, for
that-
sure.
That we can recommend
Mm-hmm.
a new zoning district for any parcel that doesn't comply with the current land use. We just have to recommend the rezoning and the new land use for it. Am I saying that right?
The way the county did it, they did a by request rezoning. What they did is first, they changed the designated land use for any property they could see being rezoned to better suit a different zoning. So if the first step was changing the designated land use, and then a property owner could come in and apply to be rezoned and say, well, you guys changed my designated land use.
Right.
And it's supported in this plan, that's why I want a
So-
rezoning.
So John, what I'm seeing here is we need to do a real tight scrub of all the recommended rezonings. And if any of them don't comply with the current land use,
Conflict with this map.
conflict with that map,
Right.
then they've got to come off the table as a recommended rezoning.
Or if you,
Change the map.
yeah, or if you,
Change the
if
map
you
is what we
believe
should be
that,
doing.
yeah,
Because
If
you're
that's-
saying you want to take all the rezoning requests that people came in and take them off
Right.
the table.
Well,
would be the time to change your land use map. If you
Yeah.
do see that as a zoning category that fits that property, then
Right.
you would change the land use
Right.
before you would rezone the
so
property.
maybe for any and all of those, which are going to require a land use change, we put them in a separate tranche of recommended rezonings. Do you follow me? So all the ones that comply with the current land use,
Well, none of them will,
okay,
because they're all coming in for requests for changing their zoning.
okay.
So that none of the rezoning requests would be,
It might match their land use, it might,
I don't think so.
yeah.
But no, I think, so we need to look at that fairly in
Okay.
depth then.
Okay.
And making sure that this map is accurate to whatever. And
Right.
again, we need to make sure that everybody's still on board with those rezoning requests.
That's what I was gonna ask, because it sounds like the rezoning requests were already approved by the planning commission,
They were.
all of them.
Yeah, everything was approved by the previous planning commission.
And-
It just hasn't been forwarded to the town council and won't until the plan is finalized.
Right.
So
But
they-
what Hannah's saying is, this map needs to correspond with the rezoning requests that have already gone through planning commission approval.
So how did the rezoning requests go through planning commission approval before this master plan was done?
It
I mean,
was
were we,
during
it was
the
part
ma-
of the
It was
process?
part of the
Okay.
process.
During that previous
We've been
master
doing this a
plan.
long time.
Well, no,
It's before-
no, it's this master plan, but it was the planning commission before the planning commission that's here.
Okay.
It's still during this plan. Because it started,
Yeah. So, but I'm looking at things like in the growth area, you know, you have some large office park and office park employment as designated land use. Is that still consistent?
That's not even in the town, right? That would,
They're
and
not,
there-
they're
that-
future.
that'd be under annexation, and that was what I was referring to earlier, when I was going through that flow chart. There's items now, prime example, Pank property currently in our 2013 doesn't have a designation from us for future annexation, even though it's in our ultimate, or our
It's in your growth
it's in
area.
our growth area, but was never had a classification of what zone it should have been.
It was
in our map.
industrial. It's designated as industrial right now.
It is,
That tiny
you mean the one that doesn't have any color on it?
Okay, so,
line covered.
so we have a set of recommended rezonings.
Because the town boundary is here, and the growth boundary is here, so it doesn't have industrially zoned, but anyway, and not to say it can't go through its annexation and get the designation of industrial, but I think I understand what, so we have two different kinds of apples here.
Right.
They're very close. So I think I can work on trying to pull that together.
Okay.
And get possibly the map changes to you ASAP.
And I would say anything that may be kind of questionable to the town council, maybe like not have us change the map quite yet. I don't know if it makes more sense to have us update any land use changes at the adoption of the plan, just so we're not going back and forth making edits that might be different than what you all
Sounds
recommended.
like a great item for our work session,
Sorry.
the council.
Yeah.
Because again, we want to make sure that they're on board with our recommendations from the planning commission.
Right.
Yeah.
This rezoning request. So again, hold off on making the map changes until we
Right.
have that work session.
Yeah.
Where we hash those land uses and designations out.
Because I thought they couldn't make any changes until we said.
Well,
this
see,
is
that's,
final.
that's the other thing. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, they're gonna make a decision here, but then come to when they vote on that, after the master plan's adopted, they have to be on the same page that they were on when they said, yeah, that's what we want.
So
And they
I'm-
can't change their minds. It's-
So I'm just trying to keep it simple here. So for each rezoning recommendation we have in that chapter, I'm just thinking, for right now, pending approval with the council, we need to have to, like an asterisk of what the new land use designation will be.
Right.
Right? Just to kind of tee up, if they're okay with it, then those new designations and map changes then have to go forward to county. So you have a rezoning of a parcel, you have a comment or asterisk that now addresses the land use change that has to occur. And all of that now is clarity for the council to look at. And if they go, yep, we'll go with that, now to move with the changes in the maps, right?
Right, prime example, like you're saying, this is gonna have, you know, commercial here, and then it's gonna have LC over here, and then potentially, you know, here it's gonna be, this parcel is gonna go LC, and this one's gonna go NP, and, you know, or, I'm trying to think, it's not, I'm thinking of zoning as well at the same time, so I have to be careful.
When the town council adopts the plan, are they also rezoning the properties that are being recommended?
I don't think that's happening at the same time, or should it? So I thought it had to happen afterwards, but maybe it can't. It has to happen at the same time. So by accepting the plan, I guess we could go to chapter 5 and look at that. But,
You can rezone properties through the master plan,
right. So I
so,
guess it would be part of the master plan itself, is that when the town council adopts it, they're adopting those rezoning requests.
yeah,
ultimately.
might be a Tom question too.
Yeah.
Just thinking that.
I don't
Where's
see,
Tom?
And like,
It's chapter
Yeah.
4, I think.
So,
I might spoke wrong.
so in the near term, I think what I just described is kind of the easy way to kind of tee it up for the council interaction. And if they say, yep, keep that in the recommended rezoning, knowing that we now have to do a map change with county, then that says, go ahead and interact with county to
those
get the land
changes.
use maps
Right,
changed.
to get this
Okay.
map changed.
Wow, okay. No, but I understand it. It's all got a line.
Yeah.
And so, okay.
it'd be a great plan. It's gonna be a good plan.
I think it's a very relevant question. I'm not trying to label this.
This is an interesting work session.
I have a question, I have a question for the county representative. So what I'm hearing, this is my understanding, and tell me if I'm if I'm right or not. My understanding is you've got designating land use, and then you have zoning. And I thought that designating the land use to me is the top level important thing, because your zonings, subsequent zonings have to fit within that land use. So you better get the land use right, because if you don't, and somebody wants to come in and zone something a different way, it's not compatible with the land use. So am I correct that land use is the first key decision? It is, okay? So, and that's why, kind of relevant to my comments earlier, where, you know, you guys are setting the land uses for the next 10 years. And I'm curious to see how they're different from the 2013 plan. But where I'm going with this is, so Harrison-Lashir, we're saying that's a proposed annexation. It could be, right? It could be. So are we designating that as OPE, or did somebody else?
We
Okay.
designated
So my point is,
We did before.
I'm going to be thinking about it as a council member. Is that what the town wants? Like, do we really want that as OPE? Do we want that as conservation? Do we want that as half something and half conservation? Because whatever we suggest in the master plan, people are they're gonna run with that as the blueprint.
Absolutely.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, so that, you just made an interesting point of combining, is it possible to have two designations now
Yes.
on one?
Or,
So
or,
we
or
could
present a
say-
range of options or something, so that
Yeah.
you have the word, and I brought this up at one of your last work sessions, I used the word flexibility. Now, I don't know if you can do that or not, but I'm curious.
No. You can split zone a property, but you can't go, well, we want Harrison-Lashir to be whatever we choose at that point in time.
Okay, that's fine.
You know.
Okay, so another,
It can be split zone, so again, like I've said
Got it.
before in the past, you could easily do
you gotta pick
the
one.
south portion of this parcel up against Butler Road, this could be all residential. And this could be commercial, industrial, MXD.
Or
UOE,
conservation.
Or conservation.
Conservation.
But again, ultimately, you know, the landowner has some gravity to be able to ask for a certain land use.
Is that what they asked for before?
I was not here.
Oh, okay. Bill?
Just think about that.
You know.
Because what you determine for land
Ultimately, you
use.
guys determine those
Right.
land uses. It's not us. We make
I know, but you're
recommendations.
making a recommendation to us.
Right.
You're gonna give us a plan.
Yeah, and that's why I was trying to use the words, just absolute clarity as to what each rezoning recommendation is going to require in a change of the land use. And if in the hierarchy that you're describing, which I'm not arguing
Well, that's what I
against.
heard from our county representative,
I got you.
not me.
I think the conversation will be, do we really want to rezone these parcels because they require a land use change? And is it the tail wagging the dog?
Yeah.
Metaphorically here, right?
Yeah,
Or do
yeah.
we want to retain the land use that is currently there? And that would require that we don't do these rezonings.
Or when I was bringing it up, more thinking ahead about potential intended and unintended consequences was something that might happen with Harrison-Lashir. If something happened with Harrison-Lashir and we decided it might be to the town's benefit to annex it,
Yeah.
do we like the land use that it has right now
As Office Park?
as Office Park? And then I think this is important. A little nugget, and I think you're aware, Commissioner Gann, and you might have shared it with all the commissioners, but recall the town got a letter. Did you all get a town from Carroll County Commissioner saying about Harrison-Lashir? And they had some language in there that said, you know,
Right.
we kind of encourage some residential housing, and they use the words mixed use in there. So that's why I'm bringing this up. And then my last point is you had a conversation about MXD and whether to be silent on it or what to do with it or whatever. I'm all about lessons learned and continuous improvement. And so one of the things I think we should be doing, and I'm considering doing this as a council member, I'm considering initiating an effort in this regard. But to me, the question to ask is, given the lessons learned of MXD and how we've implemented it, what are the potential improvements to the MXD ordinance? Because we may or may not, but we may end up applying MXD somewhere else, or if we annex properties. So what are the good things about the MXD written ordinance and the process? What are the things that we think didn't work out so well? And how might we modify our MXD ordinance to be better prepared and get a better outcome if we had to implement MXD again? And I already have my list of what I think went well and didn't go well.
Right, right.
But I'm considering holding I want to do it at the right time, but I'm considering of holding my own public forum. And part of that might be a workshop where I ask for citizen input on how they think the process went, and actually, have some flip charts and get citizens' views, and then that will provide the basis for maybe a next step of revisiting the MXD ordinance. So I'm thinking of doing that as a council member, but I think the task isn't a bad question, which is, knowing what we know, how can we make that ordinance better, because we might have to implement it again. So I'll leave you with those. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we always should have our code, agile. In other words, it should always be regarded as something that could get better. Okay, especially when new code comes in, like a new zoning district. I think
So
that's
that could,
fair.
if you wanted to tackle something like that as an objective,
Well,
but I'm not advocating, I'm just saying.
but again, to be fair, legislative changes and amendments originate within the council.
Right, but
So-
somebody has to, I got you. And that's why I made the statement I did.
Yeah.
Depending on what I see in the master plan and if it gets approved and what it looks like when it gets approved, I believe for the benefit of this town, that NMXD ordinance needs improvements and changes.
That's fair.
And if I'm going to be the council member that takes that on, I'm more than happy to lead that. But I'm going to get citizen input and ask them what they think, how they think it could be improved. And then I'm going to go from there. I'll make a decision as how to go from there.
Gotcha.
So I'm hesitant, if we start thinking about how to apply MXD as it currently is, it doesn't sound like that's a good idea.
No, that's fine. I'm just sharing my thoughts and what I think I may do. And I wanted to just get you to think about the what-ifs with Harrison Lashir, and if you think that's the right land use, and, what happens if MXD gets applied somewhere else in town or somewhere that's annexed in town? How happy would we be about that process?
I think we need to.
I'm
sit
thinking
down.
about all those things as a council member.
So should we throw down a marker then that the zone needs a relook?
I think that would,
Because if you don't,
The
does it
zone
matter?
here
I don't know.
needs
Does
a
it have to be in, does there have to be a, so
So I-
in the 2013 plan, there was we're considering writing this new code, MXD, right?
right.
And so in 2023, are we going to say, yeah, we wrote it and, it didn't turn out so great,
Yeah.
so we're going to.
Now we're backtracking.
I mean, at this point, I would,
That's a council question.
I would,
think we need
I
to
would,
have
I would like
council-
to, I would like to see this whole issue of MXD and
That's fine.
Yeah.
this interaction when it's in both our hands.
Yeah, and I'm not, so my bottom line is, I'm not asking you to make any changes or
Right,
objectives.
right.
But I am sharing with you my thoughts about, because I heard Commission Member Wallace talk about, well, what about the MXD? And again, I know what I saw and what I learned, and I think some citizens have thoughts about what they saw and what they learned. And at a minimum, I'm going to collect that information and then think about how to proceed. So thank you.
Yeah, no. So John, I think we've got some things to do. I've taken on some things with regard to this land use and rezoning piece you've got that. You've got those tables on the annexation that I know it's a work in progress right now too, right?
Yep.
On the annexations and, however, going back to our earlier discussion, however you want to keep it segregated into Carroll properties and Frederick properties on annexations, future annexations,
Just annexation,
it's going to require a map re-lettering.
possibly.
Right, and so, and I can go either way. We can just go A through N on those future annexations, or you can make the last ones strictly Frederick County, which I think is your preference. But again, it's all kind of timing here and getting the maps updated,
Right.
yeah. So
Yes,
it's getting, yeah, it's getting pretty precious on the time,
It's okay.
so, all right,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll try to tackle that tomorrow and just something
Okay.
off to you.
If,
End of the day.
are there any discussions in general or specific to the chapters tonight, or any of our discussions, any added discussion? Okay, so let's close this agenda item now, and let's move to council liaison report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a pretty light meeting in August. For new business, we had a road closure approved unanimously for the Oktoberfest on October 5th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We approved unanimously a bond release for the Brittany Manor at Twin Arch Village, lots 1 through 73, file number F-18-0052. And the PFAS treatment design for water stations 2 and 5 were approved unanimously. For reappointments, Dick Heiger was reappointed to the Beautification Commission. Ms. Roxanne Hemphill was reappointed to the Board of Appeals. Scott Ryland was reappointed to Board of Recreation and Parks, and Zachary Fanning was reappointed to the Streets and Road Commission. Please contact Town Hall if you're interested in serving our town by becoming a volunteer on any of our commissions. You can visit the website to submit an application. One resolution was approved unanimously, Resolution 2024-24, to allow alcohol at Mount Airy Oktoberfest on October 5th. And ordinance 2024-21, budget amendment to add $104,900, I left the comma out there, for Rails to Trails West was introduced. For unfinished business, the next council meeting will be September 9th due to the Labor Day holiday. And then August 31st, this upcoming Saturday, come out and celebrate Mount Airy by attending the Celebrate Mount Airy block party from 5 to 8 on Main Street. And that concludes my report for this month.
Any questions for Councilmember Evans on his report? Hearing none. John, the zoning administrator report, you have provided us a copy. Whichever way you want to go, entertain questions or go down the line.
Sure, if you have any questions about it, normally it's pretty cut and dry, but
Okay. All right. No questions on that. I've already mentioned the public hearing set for September 12th at 6:30 here in Town Hall. And then our next planning commission meeting will be September 30th at 7:30 here in Town Hall. And I've already gone over a key agenda item, which will be us deciding if it's time to hand it over to the council, hand the master plan over to the council. Revisiting the agenda item with McDonald's, I don't think we have any hope for anybody showing up tonight. No happy meal for them, so to speak. So I believe the Director of Planning, John, you recommended we postpone it till a later date, perhaps September 30th, perhaps October. I'll let you gauge that because I know there's other business on September 30th that you're working on right now with some other properties. So real quick, last call for any items that need to be discussed. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. It is 9:30.
This is so appropriate.